So
Yeah, and then
yeah.
also sometimes like the parking garages, there's not really a ramp. You just like go in, you bring your car into an elevator, and then it just
Yeah.
takes you all the way down
Uh,
to the garage.
yeah.
This is Worldschooling Q&A. I'm Astrid, creator of The Wandering Daughter. As a traveling family, we've spent 4 years traveling full-time to over 18 countries and 6 continents. Wherever we go, we try to learn as much as we can about the countries and cultures we visit. While we didn't coin the term, we like to call this world schooling, using the world as our classroom. Each week, my husband Clint and I will answer one question about world schooling and share our experiences of traveling the world with our kids. Ready to get started? Great! Let's dive in.
So we're continuing with our country deep dives, and this week we are answering the question, how do I world school in Spain?
Yeah, that's a great one. This is Spain, I think, is actually our next to Vietnam. Spain is our longest place where we stayed in one location.
Yeah.
And we stayed in one apartment for 3 months.
Yep.
Yeah.
So we were in Spain in 2020, well, the winter of 2021, going into 2022. And we rented an apartment in a town called La Herradura, and it's just outside of Malaga, about 45 minutes from Malaga, and stayed there for 3 months.
And this is if you're not familiar with Malaga, it's in southern Spain in the Andalusia, so right off the Mediterranean Ocean.
Yeah. I have an article about like the Andalusia region, and so a lot of the cities that we mention in this episode, you can read more about them in that article.
Yeah. So let's talk about logistics and overview. Is there any visa considerations we need?
So we've talked about the Schengen visa or the Schengen countries. So Spain is one of the Schengen countries, just like France, Italy, and so I think that 3 months, 90 days is the longest that you can stay before you have to like leave and be away for 90 days again.
Yeah. Other than that, from the United States, from Canada, there's really no other visa considerations. Other parts of Europe, there's no visa considerations. You just show up, go through immigration like you would some of those other countries.
Yeah. And in terms of language, obviously they speak Spanish. But actually, in some parts of Spain, like in Barcelona, it's a different dialect of Spanish.
I think they consider
a different language.
Yeah,
altogether.
I think it's considered a different language.
And so you keep that in mind when you're traveling there.
Yeah, I think it's just Barcelona, maybe some of the outskirts of it, but I think it's isolated.
Yeah. But the Spanish accent was hard for us to sort of get used to at first because we were coming from learning Spanish in Mexico. And like Latin American Spanish, there's certain things that are different than Spanish, particularly, just like the tense or not the forms,
just some grammatical stuff
like grammar. Yeah.
Okay. But other than that, there's some English spoken in the kind of cities and restaurants and touristy areas. But don't rely on English at all. You should definitely know some Spanish or be willing to try or know some key phrases or be with someone who knows Spanish. Because it is definitely more Spanish speaking than English.
Yeah. And if you I put together a short Spanish phrase book of 21 phrases to know if you're traveling in a Spanish-speaking country. You can download that or get access to it on my website too.
Yeah.
What about money?
Yeah, so they're euro-based, just like France and Italy.
Yep.
Getting cash is fairly easy. There's lots of ATMs around. It's like France and Italy also. It's a mix of cash and card.
Yeah.
So just have both in case you need to pay either way.
Yep.
Beyond that, there's no really, it's pretty easy. Things were fairly, especially in southern Spain. Felt like unless you went to like more fancy sit down restaurants or did some touristy things, it's actually pretty affordable. Grocery stores are really affordable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think just getting around was easy for us. I felt like
We rented a car.
Yeah.
So that was really easy. Renting a car in Spain is like it is in the US.
Mhm.
So you drive on the right side of the road, you drive
Yeah.
on the left side of the car. And that was pretty easy. So I guess the thing to mention in all of Europe, UK, especially in Spain, most of the cars you're going to rent are these kind of 2 or 4 door coupes,
Small cars.
small cars. And the reason for that is because some of the towns you're going to go into, like especially in the southern Spain area, these are old towns, like
That
old,
weren't originally made for cars.
yeah. So you know, Cadiz, Cordoba, Seville,
Granada.
there are going to be times where you're driving the small car through roads that do not look like they're supposed to have cars on them.
Yeah.
And literally where there's only like a foot of clearance, if that, on either side of your car. Parking in garages where you pull into these garage doors where they're literally, you're almost touching the mirrors as you're going into this thing.
Yeah.
So,
And then also sometimes like the parking garages, there's not really a ramp. You just like go in, you bring your car into an elevator, and then it just takes you all the way down to the garage.
Yeah.
So that was something unique. I think that was where we saw it, right?
The most, I think we saw it. Maybe somewhere else we saw them, but we saw them a lot in Spain. And I think that's just because they had to go down to build parking garages, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
they had to figure out a way to do it.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about like the tapas culture, or just like restaurant culture in general in Spain.
Yeah, this is really cool. I'll let you kind of talk about the tapas part. I want to talk just a little bit about just the restaurant culture.
Sure.
And how it differs from the United States, I think.
Yeah.
In the United States, we're kind of used to like being scurried along, right? Like you walk into the restaurant in the United States, Canada is the same way.
Mm-hmm.
You sit down, and almost as soon as you sit down, there's kind of this invisible timer.
Yeah.
Maybe even physical in some places, but like they want churn. They want you through your meal and out the door as fast as you can so they can reseat that table. The more times they can reseat that table, the more money they make throughout the day. That's how the restaurant industry in the US really works.
Yeah.
We were expecting the same in Spain just because, sure, why not? I mean, that seems like a reasonable model. I don't know what it is. I don't know how Spain affords it. I really don't know. I mean, I think Italy is probably the same way, but we really experienced this in Spain. When you sit down, you sit down. That's your mealtime.
That's your table for the night.
That's your
or a table for the day.
Yeah. We were having lunch with our friends, and we were there for a couple hours already, and we had stopped eating and maybe just drinking a little bit more. But we were just having a long conversation. And at some point, the server comes out. It is a small restaurant. It's not like they had a lot of tables. At some point, the server comes out, is just checking on us, doing anything else. It's like, oh yeah, sorry, we're taking so long and stuff. He's like, no, this is your table. This is your table for the whole day if you want it.
Mm-hmm.
It was like, what?
Yeah, and in Spanish culture, they have a term for this. It's called sobremesa. Yeah. And basically, it's just that it's like the magic that happens when you're sitting at a table and you just are engrossed in conversation, and you just extend that conversation as long as possible, because as soon as somebody leaves, then that magic is gone. It's done.
And that must be where kind of the tapas mentality comes from too. I don't know if you want to talk about
yeah.
tapas,
So in a lot of restaurants in Spain, you can order tapas, like small plates to share, and you order these oh no, actually it's the opposite. You just order drinks and they will bring out small plates to share with you with the table. And each time you order, more drinks. Then they'll bring out some more food for you.
You can kind of think of it as like, in the United States, it's like bread, or they'll bring out like bar snacks or things like that. So it's, nothing real extravagant unless you're at a really nice restaurant.
Yeah.
But it's usually just kind of like simple finger foods or things like that.
Croquettes or something like that.
Enough variety, though. You could get a meal off it. You have a few drinks and all of a sudden you've eaten a lot of food.
Yeah.
Like, okay.
Like water doesn't count as a drink, and neither does soda. I think you have.
No, I think soda. I think they.
Okay.
Or at least for the kids, they count it. Soda.
Yeah. So you have to like actually order a drink, like beer or wine or something like that.
Which could be difficult if you're like me and don't drink a lot. But it still worked for us.
Yeah. So that was something that we really enjoyed. I think it was like, it really led to the slow pace of life that we felt when we were in Spain. The other side of that, though, in terms of restaurants, so we are coming from American culture. We eat dinner at 6, 7, 8, maybe at the latest. Yeah. But usually we'll start to get hungry around 6, especially if you have little kids. That's when, that's when they will start to get hungry. And if you are hard pressed to find any restaurant that is open before 9 p.m. for dinner in Spain.
Yeah.
So if you're visiting Spain with your kids, just keep that in mind. Like, have a lot of snacks handy during that time. There's a big gap between lunchtime, which is at noon, and 9 p.m. And so I'm not sure how the Spanish do it.
Well, they do. It's similar to Italy. They did like an aperitif hour.
Yeah, that's true.
Which is like late afternoon, like 3, 4 o'clock.
Yeah.
They'll do like an aperitif where that's where the tapas comes in, right? You're supposed to like have a couple drinks and have food.
Yep.
Knowing that the restaurants are essentially going to close down and prepare for dinner.
Yeah. So it takes a while to get used to that. And our kids and me, to be honest, it's just like, I am starving at 6 and there's nothing open.
So what happened, I think a lot of times we'd end up eating in touristy areas.
Yes.
That cater towards, I think, Western travelers.
Yeah.
And that is just more expensive.
Yep.
So
but like we would always, we would cook at home dinner, because we ended up working while we were there and doing like night hours to coincide with U.S. hours. So we would end up cooking dinners at home and just doing the restaurant outings if we did during the day. Yeah. So that it kind of worked out. It was just when we were, on weekends or something and we wanted to have a dinner out.
Yeah. If we were out visiting, especially if we like for the weekend, we went to like Cadiz or Cordoba or something. We really wanted to just hang out. I think the other flip side to that too is like the sobremesa mesa type of mentality where it's your table for however long you want it. So the other flip side of that is, it wasn't bad necessarily. We kind of learned this quote unquote the hard way, but like, if it's around lunchtime and you go to a restaurant and all the tables are full, go to the next restaurant.
Yeah.
Because they don't expect to turn those tables over for another serving. Basically, as soon as those tables are filled, that's what they consider their lunch service.
Yeah.
And they will serve that and basically then close down and prepare for dinner.
So if you ask a server to clear a table that's been used that has like plates on it, it's like an insult to them, or they get really annoyed for doing that, because it's like, no, I mean, why would you make us do that?
Go to the next restaurant.
Yeah.
Why do you need to eat here?
Yeah.
That's just a way. It's just really different mentality in the US.
Or at least that's what we noticed when we were there.
Cool. Anything else for logistics overview?
I think that's it. I mean, I talk about some of that in my article about Andalusia, so you can definitely check that out.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about the highlights. So we were in the Andalusia region, so we can't really speak to some of the other parts of Spain. But even within like Andalusia, there's so many things, like so many cities worth visiting in that region.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, we visited Malaga and Cadiz and Cordoba and Seville and Granada. These are all amazing towns, and several small towns along the way too.
Yeah,
So they're all rich with their own history. There's castles. There's we'll talk about the history in a second, but like um, yeah, most of the landscape in southern Spain is the same. It's very arid, dry.
right.
You can think of things like Southern California or
The Southwest, the American
Southwest,
Southwest.
American Southwest, yeah. But it's all on the Mediterranean, so
Yeah,
you contrast that against the Mediterranean climate or the Mediterranean Sea. That's absolutely gorgeous. So it's incredible. The landscape's fascinating. You say the Southwest, it's fascinating because they used to film spaghetti westerns. If you're familiar with spaghetti westerns, they're a form of westerns created here in the United States around the 60s, 60s and into the 70s. This is like where Clint Eastwood got his start, for example. But they filmed those. They're called spaghetti westerns because they were Italian directors doing westerns, and they were grittier, they were more raw, they didn't subscribe to kind of American propaganda, and so they filmed a lot of times in Spain, in
Southern
this
Spain.
yeah, in the southern Spain, in this area. And so there's actually kind of an amusement park now where they used to film movies, but now it's kind of opened up as like a Wild West town. Like
Yeah, they took like the sets and made it into like a Wild West
Yeah.
town. Yeah.
So, but that was, I mean, for me, I grew up watching westerns, especially like Clint Eastwood westerns. So it was a real treat to kind of go see that. Yeah.
Yeah. I would say like what I liked about the region is, and we can get into the history a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. What I liked about the region is, so Spain has been influenced by many cultures throughout history. I think before it, some of the earliest cultures that like kind of came through Spain were the Phoenicians, and then later it was the Romans, and then after that the Moors from northern Africa, and then finally there's like Catholicism that came through and basically conquered the whole or reconquered, as they would say, the whole Iberian Peninsula, which is like the peninsula of Spain and Portugal. And so I didn't know much about it before we came to Spain, but when we were there, I was just admiring, like, oh, look at all this architecture. There's like a Roman theater. There's Phoenician salt factory,
salt flat or whatever.
Yeah, like in Almuñécar, and there's like a Catholic church, like amazing, like and then like Alhambra, which is like all these like Arabic style
spires and mosaics.
Yeah. So it's a great place to learn about all of that, and like me putting on my Worldschooling geekiness coming through, like we sat and we did like a whole unit study as a family of the history of Spain. And so but kind of in our own way, because I didn't want to have to read through like a book of the history of Spain. We just like we read a book about the Phoenicians, and then we read a book about Romans, and then we read a book about like the Arab Golden Age, and kind of skimmed over the Reconquista era, but I watched a couple of videos about that too. But the cool part was then, we would read about, the Phoenicians, and then the next day go visit the Phoenician salt or fish factory or whatever. It's just ruins now. They look like little pools, but that was used. That was how they had processed salt back then.
Yeah.
And then we'd read about the Romans, and we'd go and, like visited a Roman bridge that's like, that was used. And we actually like walked over the bridge.
Oh, that was amazing because it's not like, yeah, I don't know, something like that in the United
Yeah.
States to be like, oh, there'd be signs and there'd be maybe an admission fee and there'd be like, you know, no, it was like you walk down this road in the middle of nowhere. It's like little, back part of this small town.
Yeah.
And then there's like, you're like, where is this thing? And then just like up ahead, it's like,
There's
oh,
the bridge.
that's the bridge. Nondescript.
Yeah.
There's weeds growing all over. It's just like,
but so and then we also went and walked through like an old Roman theater in Cadiz. And then my favorite part was just learning about like the Arab Golden Age, and then learning how the influence of Arab or North African, Middle Eastern culture is, or Muslim culture via the Moors, influenced that particularly the southern part of Spain. And so visiting Granada, it was cool to see like the when we walked through Alhambra, and even just walking through some of the city, like they have a Medina or like a market, and you see like Moroccan stores or Moroccan tea houses. And in Cordoba, we walked through like this old mosque, which is, I think it became a church, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. It was like converted to a church. Just so many amazing, the mix of cultures that is found in the Andalusia region is just fascinating to me.
Yeah, along with the history, there's also a history of, from the art standpoint, of flamenco dance and music. And so flamenco is born out of the Romani people, and so otherwise known as gypsy people, but that's a term that's not used anymore. But the Romani people. So these are nomadic people.
Yeah.
But in southern Spain, in some of the cities, they were really like outcast and
persecuted.
Yeah. And they were relegated to certain areas of town. And like there's these cave, essentially homes that they would just build these homes in these cave structures. And that kind of became some of their homes.
Mm-hmm.
But the flamenco music and dance were artistic expressions that came out of that lifestyle and those people. And we associate so much of Spanish art now to flamenco style that it's really fascinating to go there and learn the history of it and say, oh, this is like what we associate as quintessential Spanish art is actually from the people who were persecuted,
marginalized
communities. So it's, I mean, that part is fantastic.
I think Spain is also a great place to, having been to Mexico and having been to the Philippines, and then now we go to Spain. It was almost kind of like we were going back in time, right? And we see like, oh, had it not been for Spanish exploration to these other continents, basically, and the trade that kind of came out of that, like the Colombian Exchange, as historians would call it, like there's our world as we know it, and our like global culture would be quite different, I think. And so that was cool. And that was a fun discussion to have with the kids of like, we looked at like, oh, what are the food products that come from the Americas? And what are the food products that came from Europe? And where did they go, or how did they, what would it look like? Like, what are the dishes that would be impacted if those food products weren't there? So it was a good like learning experience for us too.
And especially for us, we like to focus on responsible travel and ethical travel. And so it's a good conversation because it's a good contradiction against like the Colombian Exchange also brought a lot of devastation and a lot of
Yeah.
pain and suffering for many people. And so,
One had it not been for the Colombian Exchange, like would slavery have existed in the same extent as it
yeah.
did, as it did. Yeah.
So I mean, that goes to say, like, world schoolers, we have an opportunity to not sugarcoat the truth. You don't necessarily have to go in full gory detail about the history too.
Yeah.
But I think it's important to raise these kind of quandaries, these paradoxes of like, this thing exists because of this. And as problematic as this is, there's a lot of benefit we get from this. And it's okay to hold those two thoughts in the same space.
Yeah.
Because that's all we can do. All we can do is hold on to the problems that it caused and the benefits we reap now and feel conflicted about that. And it's okay to feel that conflict.
Yeah.
And I think it's important as we travel and we explore more of the world that we embrace that idea.
Yeah. And it's important to feel that conflict as opposed to the opposite, where you're just like, oh, I'm just going to be blissfully ignorant of it and not even think about it.
And I think it's easier to be blissfully ignorant of it when you are just vacationing or going someplace, right?
Yeah.
I think as world scholars, we're staying in places longer. We're getting to know people. We're seeing things. Like, I really do think it's a duty or responsibility of ours to hold those thoughts, to think those things, to not ignore that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But do you want to talk more about the food in general? We haven't really talked about the food.
Well, when we were there, we ate a lot of seafood. A lot of the seafood was good.
I mean, you have the Mediterranean, right? So
yes. There's a lot of ham.
Yes. Okay for me, not for you.
What else would you say?
There is the seafood, the ham. We talked about the tapas. There's paella is popular. We didn't really eat much paella.
I think we did once, or I watched somebody making paella.
Yeah. I think we were really drawn to the Moroccan food. The influence of Morocco in southern Spain. I guess there's not a lot. I mean, there's a lot of agriculture in Spain. And so there's a lot of avocados.
Yes.
There's a lot of,
in fact, we were lucky to be able to get fresh produce from a local farmer who sells, he does like produce boxes. He sells them for 20 euros a week, so that was really great. I was like, oh, this is 20 euros for these. That's a steal for me.
I guess it's important to talk about so the reason we stayed 3 months in this specific town in southern Spain is because there's a world schooling community there. There's people who live there, and there's world scholars that transient in and out of there.
La Herradura is it's like kind of like a world schooling hub.
Yeah. And so having said that, there's a lot of resources. So we found our apartment through a world schooling person there she helps people find apartments. And so we were able to directly rent from the owner of that apartment for 3 months. And then, through that world schooling community is how we found out about the CSA, the farmer and things like that. So this is a great example of where if you can find those world schooling hubs, sometimes they can create really rich experiences because you do get integrated into the community a little bit more.
Yeah. And we met several families through that world schooling hub, and we did Thanksgiving dinner together. And I think there was some other party, wasn't there?
We celebrated American Thanksgiving.
We were going to celebrate
in
Christmas,
Spain.
But then there was another outbreak. So we were like, okay, we're just staying home.
Yeah, this was still on the heels of COVID. So there were still things happening.
But so if you're, if you're new to world schooling and you want to you still want to go to a place where there might be other families that you could meet. This is Andalusia is a great spot for that.
Yeah, for sure. One more quick thing about the food. It's not very vegan or vegetarian friendly. So that's something you have to keep in mind. One thing I like how we ended the last episode is like something you recommend or maybe a couple episodes. One thing I would recommend is like checking out plazas. Plazas are amazing in Spain. In fact, I wish the rest of the world just took note of this. A plaza in Spain is usually a center square area in the middle of like apartment buildings. That there's usually cafes or restaurants on the lower bottom. There's sometimes a playground in the middle, but it's really a community gathering space. People can sit around the cafes and stuff and drink, and the kids are playing in the middle, and it's all kind of enclosed because it's around the center square, and people live all around there. It's just this intensely community experience.
Yeah, I want to say too that there's a lot of freedom that's given to children in Spain, and so like a lot of times those like 5-hour dinners or lunches, like multi-hour lunches, that was not the only time that we had a lunch that lasted a long time. We also had lunch with another family that we met at a different city. And while we were there, the grownups are just sitting at the table, and then the kids are free to kind of like roam,
wander
and play on their own. And like usually they're still within like sight lines of us, but it's different than in the United States where other parents will like scorn you for letting your kids wander around. But in Spain, like it's just expected, or it's okay, like kids, let them play. They can't be expected to sit at a table for 3 hours and be bored to death. So we just kind of, that was something that was like unexpected and wonderful for us, was just like allowing the kids to have a little bit more freedom to play, and we can be ourselves and grown-ups and connect as grown-ups instead of just as parents.
Yeah.
Anything else? So I don't think I have anything else to add. Like the cities that we mentioned, you can read more about them on the blogs. What about you?
Nope.
Well, that's all for today. Thank you for joining us on this episode of Worldschooling Q&A with Astrid and Clint. Be sure to check out the show notes for any links we mentioned in the episode, and visit my website, thewanderingdaughter.com, to dive deeper into world schooling and family travel.
If you like what you hear, please consider supporting The Wandering Daughter on Patreon. It really helps us out and keeps the show going. You'll also get exclusive perks like episode transcripts, additional resources, access to office hours with us, and more. You can find us on Spotify or the podcast app of your choice. If you're listening to this on Spotify, you can tap the bell icon to get notified when new episodes come out. And if you like this episode, please give us a 5-star review. It really helps new people find our show.
If you're watching this on YouTube, don't forget to like and subscribe and tap the bell icon to get notified of new episodes. You can follow me on Instagram @WanderDaughter or follow The Wandering Daughter on Facebook. Links to these are also in the show notes. If you have any world schooling questions you'd like us to answer for future episodes, feel free to throw them in the comments or send us a message at thewanderingdaughter.com/podcast. Until next time, happy travels!
Bye!